What's up, YouTube, and welcome to Codename Scream. I am that horror guy, and please make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications for all things horror. Welcome to another episode of With That Being Said. As I stated last week, we are going to step away from the top 5 favorites of mine that I've been doing for you guys the last few weeks. We've got new horror coming out finally. And so I'm going to take a moment to actually discuss some of these new films as they are coming along to us. So this week we are going to cover Wrong Turn. If you have gotten a chance to see this movie already, no worries, you're in the right place. If you have not seen it, spoiler alert is now in effect. But Wrong Turn was the 7th film in the Wrong Turn series, but it serves as a reboot for the entire series, rebooting the original 2003 film. Alan McElroy from the original film, as far as the screenwriting side is concerned, did come back for this one, and it was directed by Mike P. Nelson. It got a single-day theatrical release January 26th of 2021, and then got the home media and streaming release February 23rd. This movie, very much so, it starts off feeling like a Wrong Turn movie. Just very reminiscent of them as a whole. And, you know, shocker, the guy that started the series, writing-wise, is here, so it would feel that way. However, the film is aptly titled, mainly because it does take a wrong turn about halfway through, and it just does not recover, in my opinion, whatsoever. So what we're going to do is just discuss the film really quickly, and then kind of just dive into how I felt as a whole and why I took such a strong statement right at the beginning. But the movie surrounds Jen and her 5 friends, and they're hiking through the Appalachian Trails and stop in a rural small town in Virginia. When they stop into this town, they get warned to not go off the trails whatsoever, which they then find out while they're hiking and do go off said trails. They come across a cultist group that's very primitive in nature, and they have multiple traps set up throughout their perimeter to keep outsiders from coming in to their area. And if they do happen to go in there, they don't come back out ever, as some of the townsfolk warn as the film progresses. The group is called the Foundation. They were founded in the 1800s, just before the Civil War. They were a group of people that feared that the end of the United States was coming with the Civil War, and just how humanity was as a whole, how they were treating each other with the sickness in the world. So this group of people decided to just pack up and go up into the mountains and start their own community in their own eyes, and essentially like a perfect new world order, if you would. But very primitive in nature on how they act and how they dress as well. When they go out to hunt, they're wearing skull masks, and they're wearing really grassy camouflage. Kudos to them. They need to get in touch with like Realtree, all the camouflage companies that they're out there. They need to get in touch with them, because that was actually camouflage and did really well for them. So kudos to the Foundation. The film, once the group gets off the trail, is when the body count starts up. This film did have 15 on-screen kills, so that was a nice thing as far as a horror fan that's into, obviously the body counts, as we've discussed on multiple occasions on this. So that was cool to see. The cinematography of the film was phenomenal. It was beautifully shot. The area in which they shot the film, it was a really beautiful just area as a whole. The biggest takeaway was Bill Sage, who portrayed Venable in the film, which is the cult leader, gave us probably the most honest acting of the entire film. I actually felt like his character was what it was supposed to be. He's looked at and seen as the leader, judge, jury, and executioner in certain aspects. And he fit the role. It felt real and was the most enjoyable part of this entire film. Nothing against Matthew Modine, who plays Scott, Jennifer's father. He goes out 6 weeks after she no longer checks in with him to go look for her, ends up in this town. No offense to him, he put on a good show, but ultimately Tom Atkins would have been the best portrayal here. Tom Atkins in Halloween 3, he went going out and looking around and, discovered Silver Shamrock and whatnot. ultimately would have been the better pick here on the casting side of things, if you want my honest opinion here. Um, the kills that you do get to see, because there was a handful that do end up becoming off screen. There's a giant rolling tree coming down that takes out one of them in a scene. You see the aftermath, which is pretty brutal. But when it actually hits, you see the vibrations of the trees and birds fly away. So pretty brutal, leave it to the imagination. Then you get to see it afterwards. So it's like, ugh. But the on-screen violence that you did see was pretty intense and felt realistic in certain cases. Towards the end of the film, when it's Jen and her dad are escaping the Foundation and leaving, there is a scene particularly where she is standing over a guy and just stabbing him repeatedly. I lost count on the stabs. I don't know how many times. But when she's hugging her dad and just kind of in shock over what was happening, the blood that was on her, yeah, we know that this blood is fake in films. This looked real fake, and so that was something I did not appreciate. Where up until that point, it looked realistic. It looked awesome. That was something I took away, but then that's where you lost me there. So really what got me about this entire thing, it started off feeling just like these other Wrong Turn films were, just very reminiscent. And yeah, as I said, shocker, the guy that wrote the films is back. So of course he's gonna, it's gonna feel like a Wrong Turn film. But then when it steers about at the halfway point, just kind of goes down, it was just kind of all over the place. And it felt like two different movies after a point. And it was just one of those, I wish they would have stuck with how they started the film and just kept going. This movie went way longer than it needed to. There was a lot of unnecessary content, I felt like, in the middle, and definitely towards the end. The end never felt like it was ever going to come. Like, we get a pseudo dream sequence in a moment where Venable comes to Jen's house, and she ends up seeing herself killing him after he kills her entire family in front of her. And that was cool, but then it's like, oh no, that's a dream sequence. And then we're getting to the end of the film, and he's taking her back to the Foundation because she's pregnant with his kid, and that was his wife. That was part of the agreement she had to not get killed in the pseudo court sequence they did in the film as well. And the RV goes off the road, and then she leaps out, starts stabbing dudes, throws a knife at another one, just becomes like ultra assassin. And that was something that was just like, that was cool, but the film just felt like it was never going to end. And the credits are rolling, but the longest, slowest walk up all the way. Big kudos at the end of the film. We got the longest walk sequence in film history, it felt like there. But Ruby Modine, who is the daughter of Matthew Modine from the film, she does an absolutely beautiful rendition of This Is Your Land, This Is My Land. That was one takeaway from the film that I really enjoyed. Kudos to her. That was my takeaway of the end of the film. I started losing count at one point. How many times they say, we have to get off this effing mountain. I feel like you can make a really good drinking game out of that. So that's my take on this film as a whole. Great cinematics. Bill Sage, you rocked. Tom Atkins, where were you? That would have been amazing. And Ruby Modine, way to just give us a beautiful rendition of that song at the end of the film. If I were to rate this, 2 knives out of 6. So next week we will return to my top 5 of all time, and then I got some cool things planned in the next coming weeks here for you guys, so you won't want to miss any of that. So with that being said, scare you later, YouTube.